We can see you fine. I've got one shining on me, but that's okay. Actually, I might try this. We're live now, so okay. I know that. We'll do this. That's better. We can see all of you that way. So, all right. So we're live. Let me go in and make sure everything's okay. And I can see that there's people already coming in. There's 3. Let's see. Hello, Kirsty Belleville. Yes. Yeah. So are we. Morgan and I are real excited about this. Let's see. Michael Van Patten's here. Joe Delaney's here. Okay, we got 11 people in. All right. Let's see if the sound's all right. Yep. It's good. All right. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Kirsty Belleville, Mary Cooper, Michael Van Patten, Dr. Joe, Wendy Kirkwood from Queensland, Jania Gazda from Vienna, Michael Gabay from Israel, Denise Chadwick, Janet Ann Gilliam, Kismet Majeski from Georgia, Edith Ann, Nina Mickelson, Zach Bergen, Marcy Duros, Penny McLeod, and Morgan Lee. Okay. So, all right, we got 30, Amy Brown, got 30 people and 33. Okay, that's the master number. All right, I'll let this sit right here for now so I can see the comments in case anybody has any questions for these beautiful people in front of us. Hello, Policy Hancock, Maurice Nee Fiergal, and Eva Skartner from Norway. There's some new faces, Becky Beckus from Florida, and Diane McLaughlin. My name's Todd Medina. This is Soulogy Network. This is our primary show called SOULSPEAKS 5D. It's a conversation. This is our probably 825, 835th episode of this show. And we're very honored to have Glynne Ray and Nicky Hamid with us today. It's a very unique opportunity to gain some activations, I think, and open up some soul codes in us, because I know that they've been together for 33 years and have had, it was really interesting talking to Nicky the other day, because he started talking about y'all's property and talked about some of the things that y'all share and see. And I thought, wow, what a great way to cohabitate with the ogres and the fairies and the elves and everything. Yeah. So thank you so much, both of y'all, for coming and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us today. It's a deep honor. Thank you. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And as I said before, you're looking very smart and dapper.
You should have seen me 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, right. I'm 77 years young, so I'm allowed to be decrepit.
Wow. I wouldn't have thought you were 77. Not that age is relative now, though.
No, right. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking with eyes of 35. That's the way I see it. Yeah, and the eyes of a child at the same time. And it's difficult to contain me, as probably Glynne would verify.
Yeah, I can relate.
I'm going on for 74, but I say I'm 47.
There you go. That's an 11. That's a master number. Yeah. So, I mean, God, I have so many, and normally I can flow right along, but I have so many questions. I mean, you guys have been together for 33 years, so that put us back in what? That would be around late 1980s.
86.
86. Yeah. Really long before any of this stuff that we talk about on these shows was even at the surface. And I know from talking to Nicky, he's been in the game a long time. He's had an understanding for a long, long time. And I can't imagine that the two of y'all could come together. Did you click? I mean, obviously you clicked in the heart.
It's actually an interesting story. Shall I start? Or you can start.
All right, I'll start then. We had just our lives. We were both brought up by mothers who were in theosophy, and this is going way back, in the 50s. And And so we both grew up with all the knowledge of the masters and
Ancient
what was
wisdom.
going to be happening in the ancient wisdom. It was just part and parcel of us. It was quite wonderful. And the amazing thing was, Nicky had come out to New Zealand with his family when he was 8 or 9. And they settled in a state house down the bottom of the North Island. I was up in Auckland, and we had identical houses, identical siblings in the family. We both came from a family of 6. And there were so many comparisons there. It was quite unusual. We both had previous marriages and children.
3 children.
3 children. And then both our marriages had split up. And a friend of mine asked me if I'd like to come and hear this. He was what do you call it, from university. He was from Waikato University, and he was coming up to Auckland to give a talk on that, and he was very much into spiritual things as well. Would I like to go? And I went along with her, and Nicky's up on the stage and starts talking about the Great White Brotherhood and the Masters. And at that stage, it was still very hush-hush. You know, it was not talked about openly. And I sat there thinking, wow. Anyway, as it progressed, he was holding different retreats and had different meetings, and I used to go to some of them. And then he rang me at work one day and said, how about coming down to Hamilton where he was? And
I was separated. We were in the middle of a divorce thing. My wife found somebody else, and my ex-wife. And so what happened? I'll give my point of view, and then you can come in with yours as well, because, you know, it's all ordained. You know, these things are ordained. Neither of us were looking for a partner. You know, I finished, and as far as I'm concerned, you know, that was it. And Glynne had been a single mother for over 25 years.
Oh, not quite 25. No, not quite
for a long time, and she wasn't looking for a partner either. But anyway, this time I had to contact her. I'd been through when my wife left me, my Kundalini raised, and for 6 months I was trying to get back into my body, and I was teaching at university, and I had no mind.
And you don't?
No mind. And so I was going through that. I was forever having cold, freezing showers, which I hated, to bring my Kundalini down so I could function as a human being, you know. And I had 6 months training in that. I also had to write daily, because I was writing out the ego of men, how they, in 1,001 ways, attempt to destroy the feminine. And I was running that through me and my ego in my writings. So it's like I was really going to the bottom of my ego. At the same time, being out of my body, trying to deal with this Kundalini raising, burning up, and holding my mind so I could do my university teaching.
And then the death of your daughter too.
And I had the death of my, we had 3 children, and the death of my young daughter too, through a tumour. Those sorts of things. That's part of the, if you like, the trauma, the change. But I was going through those. Then this meeting of Glynne, I had seen before, and I had no particular inkling. This female master coming from Venus, because I knew that I came into this solar system through the sun into Venus, and that's where I have incarnated before, and it's kind of like being the base for me as a being, you know. And I saw this female master coming from Venus, coming towards. I mean, I didn't know who it was. It was just there. I even went through a pregnancy in my own body, you know, feeling a pregnancy. And, you know, I know that men have wounds. And having the labor pains and everything. These are asides. I hope I'm not boring you.
No.
But to get to it, we came together one day and sat and talked. And we talked most of the night and so on. And Glynne, which she came down to visit, I was living in Hamilton, which was about 2 hours away from her. And we had no inclination to come together at that time. And I didn't recognize that she was the one who was coming from Venus, you know. And so she went back to Auckland on the Sunday. And at the end of the week, I couldn't contain myself. So I rang her up and said, how about let's getting married?
Yeah, he did, Todd. I honestly, and you know what? I couldn't find any reason to say no.
I said, why?
I was,
why not?
What, why? And everyone who knew me knew I'd been on my own for so long. And they said, who? What? Who to? You haven't got a man in your life. But also before this, I had been doing meditation, and one night I really went out, and I was on this big golden disc, and Nicky came and stood on it, and then this beautiful being appeared in front of us, and he had a big scroll, and he dropped the scroll down, and we took an oath to come here at this time, and to work together and to be here supportive of each other as we go through this time of big change that was coming. And to me, that really frightened me to start with, because I was a solo mother and I didn't have the education and that Nicky had, you know, and I thought, oh my gosh, I felt like, you know, sort of hiding away. But it was certainly ordained and meant to be. So that's how things just happen, and we just came together. It was a shock to everybody. But it's wonderful because, I mean, you know, we've got the ordinary marriages people do. So you've got ups and downs you go through and family issues and all sorts. And at times it's been quite stressful and that. But regardless, we have this deep inner knowing and bond that we're here for a purpose. And that comes first and foremost.
I've got her back. She's got my back. I've got hers. And you know, neither of us consider we're twin souls.
Yeah.
We have knowledge of each other going way back, and it has been it's a knowing, it's an inner knowing, and so we had to learn to deal with our kundalinis, and we had a lot of kundalini experience in the beginning. But very quickly, it became how to work with the energies, and we would like to share a little bit of that later.
Yeah, I would love. No, I would love. Yeah, I'd love to get into that. I want to just make sure I understand. So, Glynne, you had a meditation before he made the phone call for you.
Yes.
If you would, okay. So you had the meditation in full recollection that he appeared, the golden disc, and then the third party or the master or whatever, and the scroll was laid out, and you knew at that time, I guess you must have known at that time that there was something going on. Yeah. And that's how it went. Is that right?
Yes. Well, it's we hadn't had sort of any contact at that time, because I was very aware, being a solo parent, how I was getting looked at by a lot of women who were friends, and you know, in marriages and that, I suddenly became a threat to them. You know, if I looked sideways at their husband, they would be thinking, you know, I was after them, and it was not. It was not the case at all. And Nicky, being on his own and being who he was, and he was very popular and very well known. It was like, no. That, you know, it was a bit overwhelming for me, and I thought, no, that's never going to happen. But my goodness me, it did. And that vision I had, it was certainly an off-planet vision, very much so.
Yeah.
And so it was the vibration and everything of it. You knew it was something pretty special. that was taking place there. So it was, so it unfolded out in the way it did. And so, but it's been an amazing 33 years, and what has happened and the many, many experiences we've, had through that time. I've never been able to be labeled with anything. I can't wear a label because I've just always been very connected with the earth, very, you can say psychic in different ways, but I feel energy, and spirit uses me in a way it's like I work in areas of, that are missed out, overlooked by others, in the gaps between. And so that's where I've always been. That's why I've enjoyed my place with Nicky and sort of being behind him. But with him, it's because I also can see what's going on, and can work in my own unique way or with spirit. And I've said sometimes to spirit, how come, you use me like this? And they said, well, you haven't got that much of a mind, so we can work through you without interference. And I said, oh, I like that, right? So if I need a mind to really go into things these days, I just say, just sit there, Nicky, hang on, I'm just borrowing the mind for a minute, okay? Can I have the brain? So it's very good, very convenient.
Now, I know this is going to be it's probably kind of a dumb question because I already know the answer, but do you receive, you experience divine episodes together, divine intervention, divine communication together? I know you do separately for sure, but I mean, do you actually experience these things together as well, these 33 years?
We do at times do experience things together and share, but very much independently together as well. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Todd, I think the best image I have of it, and you can correct me, darling, if you think not, is what Calaga Brand said about marriage. He said, you're two pillars in the temple, and you stand side by side, and now and again the shadows cross. And that's that oneness where you do share, but most of the time you don't. You're independently together. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And with couples, I mean, I've done couple workshops and things like that, and I have always separated the couples so that they're not trying to work on their problems together. They're seeing them from their own point of view and other people's point of view. And when they come together, what was the problem?
Yeah.
This intensity I see with this having to work things out all the time and trying to, be together puts a strain on it. You are together. It's like you are together. And when Glynne shares her epiphanies, I don't see things the same way she does. But I get, if I'm, listening to her epiphanies, I get something from it, which is my version of it, and vice versa, I think, isn't it? She sees me and I can go off, waft off into great expansion. And you feel you don't have the mind for it, but she sees.
But I see the pictures.
Yeah, and she gets what she needs from it. And so we don't try to be together. We don't try to do a matchup.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way for us.
I like the what I heard many years ago, that a marriage is not an ownership. It's a partnership. And so many marriages fall into, one feeling more powerful over the other and must toe the line in that. But when you can see each other, you're still individuals. You've still come from different pathways to this point with different experiences. And we've come together, to share and work because we've got that compatibility to work through these things. But, when you, I've seen so many hurtful things being passed between partners in marriage, and it's like, you don't need to do that. and putting the other person down all the time. Well, in any relationship, you don't know what that soul has come through, not just in this life, their whole, walk up to this point. And so it's respecting the other too. Having a deep respect for the other, I think, is quite important. And at times, we all need our own space, like a day away or a few days here or there. And it's funny if I used to, go off for a week or something, but in that week we'd spend more time talking on the phone than at home with it. It's quite funny, but the contact is very close. It's a lot closer than when it is, with that ownership sort of thing involved.
And we can be just as much together when Glynne's overseas and I'm here, for example. And the energy is just the same. When Glynne needs energy, I'm a free channel. She can take it, or if I need energy, she can. And it's an instant, and it's not thought out. It's just being together, talking about the weather. It doesn't matter what we talk about. It's an energetic thing.
Yeah, and natural. The two shadows coming. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make it happen.
You had mentioned the Kundalini energy, particularly in the early part of your relationship, and there's been, and I don't know if this is on the same subject. I think it is, but there's been more and more coming to the surface about what people. I'm not into labels either, but to explain it, divine conscious union, partnerships such as yours, the sacred sex vibration, power, Kundalini, that type of thing. So we're interested in hearing what you had to say about your Kundalini experiences and the power of it in what you were referring to in your early time together.
Yeah. Do you want to speak first? No. Yeah. Well, first of all, I was given a PhD on Kundalini by my experience. That fire raging all the time for over 6 months and learning to work with it. But then I became very sensitive to it, and I can tell where a person's Kundalini is exactly and how they're experiencing it. Anybody. And when I was trying to hold that and learn about that, I'd sit on the train because we lived in Hong Kong at the time, and you go on the underground. I'd sit in the train beside a woman, and I wouldn't know her from the bar of soap. And because my energy was up, her energy would go up, and she wouldn't even know. She'd be squirming on the seat, not knowing. That is so powerful. And in the clinical practice, of course, you have what they call transference, falling in love with your therapist. But with the Kundalini rising, even more. So I had to learn about the effect of the presence of Kundalini on others as well. But in our relationship, it very quickly became an energy exchange with not even touch.
So much.
And Glynne's got a few really good examples of this happening in our life, with regards to what we're like being overseas and being very unwell because she had a heart problem. And feeling, she was really losing it. She was losing her life. And all she needed to do was ring on the phone, and she would get that energetic exchange, which balanced and brought her back. And even, can you tell them recently?
Well, there was one quite profound incident when we were in Hong Kong, and I just had a major heart operation and stent, and our young boy was, about 8 at the time, and Nicky he was doing he had a very big contract he was doing there, a psychology contract. And so his work was full on. He was looking after Brooke and trying to get people to look after him, and coming to the hospital to see me. And then when I was discharged and came home, I was very, very weak, and there was very little energy with me. And Nicky just collapsed on the bed, and it was like, just with relief with having me home, but just the pressure, everything and he could hardly move. He could hardly breathe. And I thought, oh my goodness. Spirit just told me, lie on top of him. Lie on top of him. And I lay on top of him. And then this energy just came down through me, just flowed all through him. And, you know, within half an hour, he was totally energized again. And it was incredible. And I thought, where did that come from? You know, because of the state I was in. But we were both, actually, it was like a big healing came through both of us. It was really, it was something very profound. It was quite amazing.
And the recent one, the recent operation, and the blood pressure.
Yes, that happened back then too. But this time, I just had a major cancer operation back in March, and it was a long operation. It was 8 hours, and the specialist was concerned that, you know, me going under so long. But before I went in, Spirit said to me, "Tell Nicky to call you back after the operation. Call you back." So I told him this. So I had the operation and I was in recovery, and I could hear them calling me, but I couldn't open my eyes, and I was just floating, and I knew I was just floating around the room. And I asked if Nicky was there, and the nurse said no. She said, "We've got to get you stabilized yet. You're very low, all your readings." And I said, "Just call Nicky, please." And she said, "No." I said, "Just get Nicky in here." No. And she was adamant. She said, "No one comes in here till we've got you stabilized." Well, this went on for some time. And I was very nice with it. I said, "Look, everything will be right if you just call Nicky in." And I said, "Look, I'm floating around. I can see you. I can't open my eyes." And that started freaking her out. Yes, they were very low. So anyway, then I don't know how long the time passed, because I was just in and out. And then she said, "All right, I've rung your husband." She said, "He's coming." I said, "Good." And a few minutes later, Nicky came in, straight in, touched my feet. All my blood pressure, everything just came up. Everything was normal. And the nurse said, I opened my eyes, and she said, "How did that happen?" I said, "I told you. All Nicky had to do was touch me." I said, "This would have happened, you know, if you'd got him in as soon as I came out, you know, and said to you, bring him in, we wouldn't have had any problem." Oh, she said,
Welcome to the yeah.
And it was a very clear message that we had given in that, because I am inclined to go out like that, you know, and it was just going out a little bit. After all that time of being out of the body, it was just, I needed to be that touch, Nicky's touch, to, you know, bring me back in. So it's amazing what happens, you know, with our partnership when we let it happen. And I think a lot of these things too, we do give too much thought to, because we get these messages, and I mean, so much of it's very energetic, isn't it? It just comes, you know, through your consciousness and your knowing, and then just respond and do what comes. So
that's what I was gonna say. I think you just said it, but basically, like when you got on top of him when he was distraught, you got the energetic message to do that, and that was a natural thing. And then when he walked into the room, well, you knew to have him call and come. And then, you know, I don't think, Nicky, you walked up to her and said some kind of incantation or anything like that. You just simply touched her in a natural way.
Touch your feet. You bring the spirit back into the feet. You know, it comes down through.
We did know about these things, if you like, because we were familiar with our exchange and the way energy works and so on. So there's hardly a thought, and there's not a word. We just kind of know. Glynne knows when she is, and I do with when I. And my work is so different from Glynne's. I mean, I admire Glynne, how, you know, she called it psychic. But some of the situations she gets in terms of rescuing people who have died and passed over, and some of them are quite amusing. Or she'll go to a site and nobody knows it's a sacred site, and she does, and she sees the history, and she clears the pain and misery of that site that is holding it back. And she doesn't talk about these things. She just goes and does it.
Yeah.
And there are so many things she does that I don't do, but I know about them because we've had the same background, you know, the theosophical background, which included everything, the angelics, the star people, the elementals and everything. So they're all part of our life.
Wow.
And so is the energy. And with all this, we're saying we're not big noting. We're just like, it's just very natural if we allow it to be natural.
Yeah, I like what Glynne said about if we don't think about it, it's just instinctive. There's no words. There's just energetic feelings and impressions. Yeah. So go ahead. Okay.
No, and I think it's necessary, like the work you're doing is bringing so many points of view out. And that's marvelous because there has to be, it's the beauty of humanity, so many points. But there is also that we can analyze too much.
Yes.
And that gets in the way of the experience and the growth of this experience, because it's, well, I know, I can see it in your eyes, Tom, you know, the excitement of all this that's going on and we're part of. You just want to burst out.
Yeah. Well, just being in front of y'all, I'm trying not to cry. I don't know why my tears keep welling up in my eyes. It's an incredible thing. Do you have? I mean, you know, I see that you, without thinking, or both of you are connected on a wordless level, right? Do you receive any intel, or do you have any? Because I know everything we do, and that we clear, and that we elevate to, we're contributing to the collective as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain connection to your journey together that you feel is directly connected to the collective? I mean, like a certain role that you have. You said you had the scroll come down. This was ordained. I mean, it seems, and I don't know if this is the right word, but it seems like mission oriented almost.
I think part of it is really sharing or touching people with unconditional love. You know, anyone who comes here is treated in the same way. They come in and they end up feeling like family. Often, you know, they say, we're just here for 5 minutes. 5 hours later, they can still be sitting here not wanting to leave. And it's just being, you know, we're here for a human experience as well. And it's giving the touch and the wonders that we have in human life. You know, the sharing, the making a cup of coffee or sharing a meal, and really listening to people too, you know. And so many people, yeah, we've had people who've never been hugged, you know. Well, and when Brooke was at school, he brought some boys home from boarding school. And one of these boys one night sat at the table and he started crying, and I put my arms around him, and then he cried more and more. And then afterwards, you know, and I said to him, are you all right? And he said, that's the first hug I have ever had in my life. You know, this was a 15-year-old boy and that. And it's like, oh, you know, these are the things that I think also, like, there's so many great workshops, all sorts out there. And they've all got quite a price tag on. That's well, you know, people have to make money as well. But there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful souls who don't have the money to be able to do these things. They're just living on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, they're not being pushed aside from ascension or anything in any way. They are probably, a lot of them, are far more ahead than a lot of other people. Loving work. They're the real workers, like the work could be reaching out. And, you know, when I think of like all the volunteers and the work they do, and because I've been through this cancer journey in that, and the beautiful people out there and the cancer support groups, and it's just caring, loving and listening, you know. It's not always saying, oh, it's all right, dear, it's all right, it'll be all right, don't you worry. That doesn't, it helps on one level, but not in another. You know, when you say, what are you really feeling? You know, you're feeling you're facing death, you're scared of this, you know, and working and talking through these things with it. And it's amazing the difference it makes. Just really touching, you know, what is the needs of people. So we just take it on a day-by-day basis as it comes. We never quite know, you know, what or who will come in. And then, of course, you also get the are going to be, you're never going to get rid of us. And I know straight away it's like, okay, they'll be going down the road soon. And sure enough, they do. Because it gets too much, you know, oh, I love this energy. But then they start feeling within them, pressure within them, you know, to change or do things. And it's like, too much. I got to get out of here. But often they come back years later, you know, they hang around out there. But it's quite interesting what transpires.
I think your question on mission is a good one, Todd, because on one hand, I could say, yes, we have a mission. But on the other, I'd say that mission we all have, and that is to be the love we are, and to be who we are, and touch where any opportunity that's in front of you. I mean, I have a vision of doing something later on if the resources come, and you could say that's my purpose, but it isn't. You know, our purpose is so simple, and we complicate it so much. And that's a mission, and it's huge because we're talking about the quantum field, and one thought touches everyone everywhere, and we can say that here. Yeah. But living it means that everything you do counts. Yeah. And so that's the mission, and I know it you know the truth of this, but. There's no big mission. It's not big, it's monstrous.
And it will unfold day by day as we go along now.
Yeah.
We're getting told that, you know, more and more. The more we pull out of it, the more we give it space to let it unfold.
Yeah. I think there's an old word, you know, in theosophy we had it, you know, and the great triangle was will, wisdom, and love. All right. And the one we don't use very much is will. Jason Estes, is it? Estes. Yes. I'm not sure whether he referred to it, but yes, he did. He said this whole point, you know, this 18th and so on, is to be willing. Is to be willing. And that's it. We've got to have, it's the will. You don't do anything without will. So we've got to be willing, and we have to use our will to commit to something that means something to us, and our will to do it in this moment, in this next person, and this next opportunity, and this next one, not worrying about the big mission. Because it's in the act, in the small act of will, that the big mission is accomplished.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. It's the human things, right?
Absolutely.
It's just I
wrote something, a posting about human, because I think human being has been much maligned, and the word human, H-U, who. And who was the name of God? Who was the name of God? That was the chanting of who. And it's a wonderful chant, just to chant who. And that's who we are. You know, we're God incarnate.
I saw.
What could be more powerful than that?
Yeah, I think I saw that post, and now maybe I'm getting multiple streams here, but I remember seeing that post, and I've heard that term before, man, not human, with a capital HU. And then I think underneath it there was a reference to a couple of Bible quotes. Was that yours?
I'm not sure what I did. I don't remember what I write.
And what it was saying was that it was talking about being made in the image, but it was using a different pronoun. It was made in our image.
No, that was for me.
But it just made like to me it made like a collective statement with what you were saying in the hue man, and it may have been somebody talking about the same thing. But I saw yours. I saw the first part of yours.
And it's who we are. It's to exalt yourself within your knowing what you're connected to, but with that comes an equal or a balancing amount of humility. Because if I can do it, then anyone can.
Yes,
anyone can. They can make the next step. So, I mean, I've never read the newspaper for over 40 years. I mean, people will tell you the misery. You don't have to look for it.
Right.
But those 40 years, I've looked at humanity and the people I see, and almost everyone is doing the best they can.
Yeah.
They're beautiful human spirits. So I haven't seen humanity go down. I see them rising.
Yes.
And we don't need to worry about. Don't need to worry about this thing. People are scared that, what Jason is saying, a certain timing and 10 years together. And they're so worried about it, but you don't have to. You just got to will, commit, and love.
Well, what I'm learning from the two of you is you talk about this situation in Hong Kong. I mean, I can't imagine you get together, your child that you have together, Bam Bam, is 7-8 years old. You've got a big contract. She's in the hospital. That's a lot of pressure. And then the recent stuff that happened, and then also just the normal things. But it sounds to me like what you're saying, and it's so simple, it's profound. It's like you're saying, just act normal, just be in that, be present without any bells and whistles,
we are in this attention thing, and we have older bodies, and older bodies take it a bit harder. I'm not being miserable or anything. We, if you like, experience a lot of physical symptoms, and we have to be very careful with ourselves, because it's hard on these old bodies, which are youthing. We still both believe that youthing, even though we feel awful. Yeah, right. But you don't let it stop you, because go on.
No, I was going to say, even in the times when we have all this pressure or that, we actually do even more work in that time. Because I've found literally every experience I've had through my life, I have been able to help others from the experience I gained of it. And that, I think, is a real, real blessing for me. Very, very much so. A big one is with the separation from family, and all sorts of, things like that. And then I've come across so many women when I've been working in volunteer work and that too, who suddenly something will trigger and they'll be having a little cry or that, and you ask what's wrong, and then they'll share with you, about a situation or what family has done to them. And it's incredible what is happening out there that people keep within them. They try to put on a happy face, and they go doing all sorts of things. There's so much pain being carried there. And even, when I've been in hospital in these cases, I've ended up doing so much work in there that it's, I've actually said to Spirit, you don't have to put me into hospital or in intensive care, to get these things sorted out. Can't we do it out there? Because I've had some incredible situations there. But, it's lovely. And what you're doing, bringing all these different people together, we all have different experiences, so we all have different outlooks and feelings and sensations of what's happening and what's going on, and we're all like just a piece in the great big puzzle. And we're just popping here, popping there, and it's bringing, slowly but surely, bringing it all together into the great, beautiful masterpiece of what is taking place. Yes, and so what you're doing, is really, it's not easy by any means, and you're certainly getting pushed all the way along, with your technology and everything else. And we would love if we had, a lot of financial abundance to send it on to you. When it happens, we will. And I'm hoping it'll happen. That's for sure.
You and Morgan are doing amazing, and we so honor
wonderful.
What you do. And
keep on keeping on. Is the big thing.
And it ain't easy, but underneath we know. It's what Jason talks about, faith, and I think that's another old word that needs to be brought back, is to have faith, because it is working out, and I know it's not easy for you, and we loved you so much.
We'd give you a great big hug if we could. Big cosmic hugs coming to you, John. Big cosmic hugs.
And Morgan too, because I know there's two of you.
Yeah, absolutely. There is.
Whew. Yeah. Bless you, brother. Bless you.
Y'all better talk, because I can't.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like we have all kinds of experiences. We have, multi-dimensional is nothing. There's nothing. And, it's just part of life. But the human thing is simplicity. The human thing is simplicity. Even allowing. Glynne allows me to go off and have a grump.
We sort each other out too. We're very good for keeping each other in balance. We quite easily will tell each other off, and we'll say, that's not right. I don't agree with that. Full stop. But that's part and parcel, of knowing each other as well. Yeah. But I just wanted to touch on the communication with the ETs, if that was all right, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know different, but I think a lot of people are sort of getting this communication now. And for me, I have communication that comes to me from this beautiful being, and it's just a energetic knowing that comes in, like she's talking within me. So the knowing, and it's all through me, every cell of my body. And so sometimes I can be asking a question, the answer is there before I've even finished the question or that. But it's a beautiful clarity and clearing. And people, say to me, well, why can't I hear them? Why can't I see them? And they're still in the old way of thinking. You've got to see, you've got to look with the third eye, you've got, you'll be hearing them physically. And it's not what's happening. The energy now is getting so refined. And as you let go, your energies are rising in all this time. And we're becoming far more compatible. And it just flows. It's just a beautiful flow. And I don't have long conversations at all. And I find it's very direct, and it's not all fluffy-duffy and what have you, because these are very highly intelligent beings out there, and they're very much to the point, very direct. And these are the loving ones, that's the important thing too, to make sure you resonate within that, this is a good contact. But it's letting that happen as well, just letting it, and it becomes a very beautiful experience. And you get little glimpses, actually even physical glimpses of, that suddenly, wow, okay, thank you. And it's very quick, but that they are there. And when I was having my my scan in the hospital, the big, lying in that big chamber and I thought, oh my gosh, what sort of radiation am I going to get from this? And then I saw these two beings, big white beings, standing each side. And they had these rods in their hand. They were like a long crystal rod. And they were going up and down over my body. And it was amazing because I thought, okay, thank you. And I knew they were dispersing any of the real dangerous radiation. And just, so that just what was needed was coming to my body and that. And so, they're there, they're with us. And when you let your senses feel them, and just in the peace and tranquility and the love and beauty that they come in, it's really, and it's going to get more and more profound as we go along.
Yeah, I'm glad Glynne mentioned this, because I think this is a problem a lot of people want to see and so on. But it's like, somebody asked a question of Glynne on one of her Facebook, and I thought it's a marvelous question. She said, with everybody talking about activation codes and so on, where do the codes come from? And for me, I thought that was a beautiful question, because a lot of people don't think it, but don't ask it. And the codes come from your own field, because they're already in your field. Yeah. They're light packets. You have everything that ever happened and everything, all the potentialities in your own field. So the energy comes in, from the great central sun, and it's sparked off according to your resonant, conscious resonant response to it. And thus you have an activation. And I don't believe that these people who say I'm activating this and activating that view, they're actually doing it. They're providing the energy for that activation to occur, but it is that. Now, how does this relate to what Glynne's saying? Those packets of information are in your field.
Yes.
And to read a packet, like to read a disc, you read it off, line by line by line. So you've got to unpack the packet. Now, with regards to sight, it's about unpacking the packet. The beings are there. Some people say, oh, they seem to have disappeared or gone. They haven't gone away. They're there. The codes are in your field, ready to activate the communication with them. All right. So it's about unpacking the packet. And unpacking the packet is becoming more and more aware of the subtleness of the energy. So that requires, that's why we so often say, let go, allow, and be open to. It's being aware of the subtlety of the energy. So when you have a presence, it might be just a soft presence that you feel as an energy. That's as real as anything else. And then you go deeper and deeper, so you're unwrapping the packet. And as you communicate to them, you make, in other words, make your move of willingness towards them. There's a deepening of an unfolding of that packet of communication level and so on. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. And I also reflect on what you said about what the real mission is, which is really just moment by moment, the humanity, the greatest asset of a human. But so it's that subtleness. It's not the real loud things we do. It's just the subtle things we do, and that's also the same thing you're talking about in unwrapping the package. We're recognizing the same subtle energy, and it's not like this big, big cosmic bomb goes off. It's just, somebody just wrote little goosebumps. I mean, it's those little things. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I, if you like, that I have a will to reach, to connect with the higher energies, as it were, or and beyond the masters. All right, and to be open to that, I have to be open to even more subtle than the masters.
Wow!
Yeah. So to unpack it, so you've got to listen and feel in your body, that presence of an energy that's even higher. And it's the same with love. We can love at a certain level, romantic love, and then we learn deeper and deeper subtle energies, because love just expands in its quality as we're prepared to unpack, use, and go higher. And it's the same with sight, of say, communicating with those who passed over. It's being aware of the subtle and listening and accepting that you've got something. It's not your imagination.
Exactly.
It's not your.
I think people can relate to that, because it's almost like you're saying that, and I hate to use these terms, but like at the lower levels beyond visible light or the next dimensions, that's when we're like, oh, give us a sign. And you might get a louder sign, but as you go up the ladder, you're right, it is more subtle and more subtle. And I think that's why so many of us doubted ourselves in the early days, when there wasn't a lot of community and people told us we were crazy, and we told them, no, we're not. But then we went by ourselves and thought, well, maybe I am. You know?
That's right. That's where the will comes in. It's being willing to take faith. And willing to believe beyond your doubt. And it's willingness to take this next little step and bring it into your heart, because you're willing to go further, but you're also willing to walk before you run.
I like that. And I've been, I say every day, the human is the hero. We're the human is the hero. And we do spend so much time out there thinking that, we're trying to get away in one sense or another, get away from being the human, but this is really the gift. We are the mission and the gift. We're the mission and the prize. And, I think that's a beautiful thing, what you're saying. And I think this has been a beautiful hour too, to be honest with you. It's been quite incredible. I knew it was going to be incredible. I didn't know it was going to be this incredible. So I don't know what to say, but on behalf of everybody, thank you for, taking time out of all days, Valentine's Day, to share your love with all of us, because I know that what you're talking about, I don't know a lot, but I know that those individual that we make are felt throughout the entire holy grid on this earth and the universe. So
because we are so beautifully one.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And thank you so much. I'd love to have y'all back, one or both or whatever. I'd love to continue to collaborate. The world benefits, even if 10 people watch or 1,000 people watch. The world benefits because it does permeate through the holy grid. And really, thank you so much, both of you. Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, you have a wonderful, loving day, and you and Morgan both. And just look at each other and say, wow, aren't we lucky?
Wow. It's a wow day.
Namaste. Well, thank you.
Namaste. Thank you, everybody. See you later. Thank you, both of you. Thank you.